Questions of Doom.
Hello and welcome back to another Questions of Doom. In this series, as ever, I attempt to answer questions that you send my way using the archaeosoup@gmail.com email address, as displayed on the YouTube channel homepage, or alternatively, as you'll see at the end of this video. In answering these questions by video, it is my fond hope that the answer is made useful not only to the person who has asked the question, but also anyone else out there who may be wondering the same thing, or something similar. Now, today's question is, once again, a very interesting question. It is with regards to the application of logic to archaeology, hence elementary archaeology, dear Watson. And it goes something like this. Dear Mr. Soup, does archaeology have to be such a mystery? Can we not apply logic to the past in order to best understand how, why, and what people were doing? Occam's razor states that all things being equal, the simplest explanation is the best. Why not call a spade rather than a ritual device? Thanks, Teenage Mutant Historical Turtle 3. I love the name, Teenage Mutant Historical Turtle 3. Yes, quite a mouthful. Anyway, you ask a very good question. Why don't we just apply logic to the past rather than potentially overcomplicating things with fuddy-duddies and ritual and all sorts of human complications? Well, the simple answer is because there are human complications. Now, when it comes to applying modern logic in particular to the past, that's fraught with difficulties, problems, issues, and lots of very questionable assumptions. Not least that, first of all, you're ignoring the fact that often people are not logical. People don't always do things for the best reason. They often do them for a perceived reason, or, in some cases, because they actually want to be countercultural. They may actually want to be illogical in a certain instance. So people don't always act logically, even within their own cultural context. Secondly, there's the issue of cultural relativism. Now, cultural relativism is the relationship between cultures. It's how, for example, you are brought up and how that affects how you perceive other cultures. Franz Boas was a big figure in identifying the idea that people must be aware of how one's own culture affects how one views the world. Franz Boas was an excellent anthropologist. And when it comes to anthropology in particular, when you're going out and meeting people and they're, let's say they kill a chicken in front of you. In your culture, in your house, that may be quite shocking. In theirs, it's an everyday act. It doesn't mean that they're wrong or you're right, or indeed that you're wrong and they're right. It means that the culture has a relative value system, which, well, up and down is probably a wrong term to use, but they exist in relation to each other, which means that one value may not be understood by the other. It's a fairly difficult concept to get your head around, but what it essentially is saying is that there are no constants in terms of particularly cultural values, and therefore you must be aware of that. Now, what this means for logic is that when you're trying to apply, for example, well, of course they wouldn't kill a chicken in the living room. That would just be wrong. Well, you can't assume that because your culture may find that bizarre, but a past culture may actually find that very commonplace. In fact, cultural relativism is so very interesting, I shall do an aspects of archaeology video on it in the not too distant future. It may have to wait until we have moved to our new abode at the beginning of July, but nonetheless it will be coming because it's a very interesting and very worthwhile thing to try and focus on. Next, there is the significance of things. How can we know that what we're identifying as being significant is in fact significant at all? When we enter a room, we will identify the furniture as being significant. We may identify a person's DVD collection or television or the decor, the look of the place, where the doors are. These may be significant to us in defining what that room is, what its function is, and what we can do in that room. To other people, it may be, or indeed to other cultures, and indeed to past cultures, it may be entirely different. Going into a room may actually signify that what you're doing is separating yourself from the outside, from the wild. For them, the connection may not actually be between what is in the room, but rather what is not in the room. For such cultures, what may be more significant would be the carpet. You go in, the floor is completely different. When I say carpet, perhaps it may simply be that the earth has been flattened by centuries of foot traffic. So you may be instantly aware that you are on compacted ground, compacted by your own ancestors, and therefore it is significant. Now, to a modern person, compacted soil is nothing special, but again, you can't always identify precisely what someone is going to say is important. Someone in the past may not even look at, for example, the things like a window, for example. It may simply be there to provide light, whereas someone in the present may spend their time looking out of the window at the view. So it's a curious thing, this, and again, once again, it means that you can't directly apply logic to the past, because a modern logic, a logical perspective, or indeed a modern Western, or indeed a modern British, or indeed a modern Northeastern England logic is so specific, is so tied to time and place that you can't directly transfer it to the past. Also, as well, as Mrs. Soup pointed out last night, you don't even have the whole picture. One of the simultaneously, one of the beauties and one of the frustrating aspects of archaeology is that we're trying to put together the past based upon disparate remains. In some cases, very well preserved; in other cases, fairly sporadically preserved. And this means that the whole picture is often a little bit eluding us, as it were. We were slightly in the dark. Now, that's not to say that we're ignorant of what the past was like, but it does mean that we can't completely say with absolute certainty what it was like to be in a certain place at a certain time. And therefore, once again, applying logic, trying to think of a logical construct, especially our own logic in that environment, is nigh on impossible, or at the very least, it wouldn't be particularly fruitful. Now, I have slightly squashed and completely dismissed from the get-go your notion, Teenage Mutant Historical Turtle #3. But there are actually aspects or situations where logic or modern understanding is very useful, very helpful. One of them would actually be bodily existence. We exist in bodies, we always have, and hopefully, or indeed, well, probably, we always will. And this means that we can't be, for example, in two places at once. That we have a species-specific nervous system, and we tend to die after a certain amount of time. It means that usually, there are certain medical problems that may turn up in our lives, and there are a whole myriad of other situations which arise from the fact that we exist in bodies. So that's one fact that we can transpose onto the past. There are other situations like physical constants, gravity, for example. Gravity, while it does minutely change over time. Indeed, so does time, apparently. But it is something which has affected cultures from the past until now. So that's something that we can take fairly for granted. The position of the sun, for example, in relation to continents on the planet. For the lifetime of our species, the sun, for example, has always been south compared to, for example, Britain. So we can take certain environmental things for granted in that context. Weather and environment, and also buildings, can be reconstructed using scientific techniques, isotopic analysis, for example, of ice cores, and various weather models, and also actually, frankly, just reconstructions of buildings. They are physical spaces in which you can try and place things. So that's a constant that you can try to understand. And also the provenance of objects, where things come from. There are various scientific techniques which archaeologists employ to find out where usually the raw materials of an object has come from. And this gives you a sense of geography, i.e. where the people who have the object had a relationship to, but also resource usage, etc., etc., and various economic concerns as well can be brought in from that. So these things, using modern understanding and modern techniques, can definitely be transposed onto the past. But all of this really is the stage. This is the context in which human life is taking place. This is the this is the box, I suppose. And what happens inside the box is a little more difficult to reconstruct, and this is why we spend so much time debating it. Archaeologists spend an awful lot of time discussing: was this an inhumation, or was this a sacrifice? Was this was this a rubbish dump, or was this a ritual deposit? And it may sound like a bit of a waste of time, especially in an age where answers can be quickly received via Google or via any other search engine for that matter, but also smartphones, etc. But also in an age where there is usually the assumption that a quick answer can be gained if you ask the right question to the right person. Whereas as it stands, archaeologists are trying to understand people that often haven't lived for hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of years, and therefore we have no one often to ask. So we have to explore in a very, what may well seem a roundabout, slightly abstract way, these worlds, but we always try and home it back in on evidence, on these constants like bodily existence, like the environment in which people are living, and the objects that people used in the past. So yes, I will definitely concede that often the discussions can seem a little bit hippie-ish, a bit airy-fairy, a bit out there, but ultimately it's only because we're trying to do the myriad of human possibilities, good service rather, we're going to do it justice, in so much as people are capable of so much inside that box. We can do almost anything, culturally speaking. Almost anything can be acceptable. That's something which the study of archaeology and anthropology teaches us, is that people are malleable and also express their culture in various ways, almost infinitely variable ways. So when we discuss these things, when we approach, for example, the Neolithic, and we're trying to understand, well, what is the relationship between the land and the people, and people start talking about ritual and rites and the relation, even the notion between dirty and clean, it comes into question. This isn't because we're just enjoying it, it's because it's the best way to try and hone down what it is that we're looking at, by first of all and foremost being open-minded to what people may have done in the past. So in that respect, logic doesn't necessarily work. In particular, what I would call logic, or what people in my society would call logic, again, it's so variable. Or even if you hop across the pond, in America they'd have a different set of cultural values that they'd transfer onto the past in different parts of America, in different parts of the whole continent of the Americas. So it's something which may sound straightforward, but most certainly isn't, and therefore archaeologists try not to do it. What we try to do is start with the evidence, start with, as you quite rightly hint at, the constants. We try and look at those things which we can get a grasp on, and then we work from those. We try and understand how people lived in those environments. So anyway, I have rambled on about this topic for a little while now, and please do feel free to comment below if you have any comments. I'm sure Teenage Mutant Historical Turtle number 3, I don't know why it's not sticking in my head, it's so catchy. I'm sure that he or she would be very interested to hear more, or indeed hear your opinions on this, about whether or not people in the past did act logically. For example, I haven't particularly touched on logistics in landscape archaeology and this kind of thing, Binford. But having said that, go and check out the A to Z of Archaeology L, Landscape Archaeology, and you'll see what I'm talking about with regards to logistics and the assumption that the use of land can be logically dissected as well. But it can't necessarily, you see. So, as I say, check out that video, comment below, generally have a good old-fashioned discussion, debate, or just add to the things that I have said, and hopefully Teenage Mutant Historical Turtle number 3 will go away with a good answer. There you go. Thanks again for watching. Indeed, thanks again for asking the question, Teenage Mutant Historical Turtle number 3. It's been a fantastic question, and as always, it seems that you guys have an unending supply of very interesting things to ask. So thank you for doing so. And until next time, bye-bye.